Have you ever wondered why the animal kingdom is so full of strangeness? Why nature, with all its precision and purpose, sometimes creates creatures that seem more like dreams than biology? From glowing fish that live in crushing darkness to birds that sing in perfect imitation of chainsaws, the living world can feel like a laboratory of imagination, a place where evolution experiments just for the joy of it. Welcome to the Sleepy Scientist. Before we begin our quiet exploration of 101 weird facts about animals, I'd love to know where you're watching from tonight, whether you're wrapped in blankets under city light or listening to the ocean outside your window. It's wonderful to have you here. If you enjoy these calm journeys through science, a gentle like and a subscription really help the channel drift a little further for those already subscribed. Thank you. You make this slow exploration of wonder possible. And if you haven't yet, you can always tap the notification bell so you won't miss the next time we wander into the strange corners of the natural world together. I hope this video isn't too interesting that it keeps you awake. But if it does, at least you'll drift into sleep with a head full of fascinating creatures and peculiar truths. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let's step quietly into the world's oddest designs. Why does life, in all its wisdom, choose to be so wonderfully weird? Every animal has a story, and some of those stories defy logic. The weirdness we see in nature isn't chaos. It's the product of billions of years of survival, adaptation, and luck. Some of these creatures have found ways to live where no others can. Some have rewired their bodies, their chemistry, or even their sense of self to fit a world that constantly changes. Tonight, we'll wander from the lightless depths of the ocean to the frozen silence of the poles, from the minds of clever crows to the chemical artistry of cuttlefish. Each fact we uncover will lead gently into the next, forming a quiet chain of life's strangest ideas, all real, all remarkable. As we drift through the story of oddities, remember, every quirk, every twist of anatomy or behavior exists because it worked. Somewhere along the long, patient path of evolution, being weird was the best way to survive. So let's begin, not with the ordinary, but with the extraordinary, the creatures that bend the rules of biology, and in doing so remind us just how endlessly inventive life can be. The deep ocean is a place where ordinary expectations fall away, a world shaped by pressure, darkness, and silence so complete that life evolves into forms that feel almost imagined. Here, survival is sculpted by constraints few creatures on the surface will ever know, and the animals that drift through these depths carry bodies and behaviors that seem to belong to another reality entirely. Moving into this realm feels like descending into a museum of impossible designs, each one shaped not by sunlight or warmth, but by the crushing weight of water that stretches for countless meters above. Some of the fish that inhabit these depths have bodies so soft and gelatinous that they cannot even hold their shape when brought to the surface. Their tissues collapse in low pressure, revealing just how delicately tuned their forms are to the immense weight of the water around them. Down where the pressure could crush metal, these fish rely on that very force as support, letting the surrounding sea act as a kind of external skeleton. Without rigid bones or dense muscles, they drift in slow motion, conserving energy in a world where food is scarce and movement must be careful. Their gelatinous flesh keeps them neutrally buoyant, allowing them to hover effortlessly in the dark. What seems fragile to us is, in truth, the perfect solution to an environment where rigidity would shatter. Their bodies are shaped entirely by the physics of depth, soft sculptures designed to endure quietly where only pressure and darkness reign. In these same waters, a very different kind of creature wields one of the most dramatic weapons in the ocean. The pistol shrimp carry a claw capable of snapping shut with such violent speed that it creates a collapsing bubble, a tiny sphere of pressure that heats the water around it to temperatures briefly hotter than the surface of the sun. This collapse produces a flash of light and a concussive shock strong enough to stun or kill prey nearby. For the briefest instant, the shrimp becomes something like a magician, conjuring heat and sound from a single gesture. The mechanics behind the snap are astonishing. The claw's shape guides water into a precise channel, and when it closes, it slams shut with such force that the bubble forms and implodes almost instantly. In the pitch-black depths or dim coastal waters, that single snap becomes a weapon, a tool, and a beacon of power hidden inside a tiny, unassuming crustacean. The ocean is full of predators, but few carry a weapon as elegant and extreme as the pistol shrimp's explosive claw. Even deeper, anglerfish drift through the dark with their own lanterns glowing softly ahead of them. These lights are not produced by the fish themselves, but by bacteria that live inside specialized organs at the tips of fleshy lures. The anglerfish offers them a home. In return, the bacteria emit a constant glow. In this perpetual midnight, that glow becomes both lure and trap, drawing in curious prey that cannot resist the flicker of light. But the anglerfish carries another secret just as strange. Their mating system is unlike anything else in the ocean. The males are tiny compared to the females, and when a male finds a mate, he bites her skin and fuses his body with hers. Over time, his organs break down until he becomes little more than a small living extension of her body, connected through shared blood vessels. This fusion ensures that whenever the female is ready to reproduce, she has a partner permanently attached. In the vast emptiness of the deep sea, where encounters are rare, evolution found a way to make sure two individuals never drift apart again. Floating through these depths, the vampire squid seems to drift on the edge of myth. Neither true squid nor true octopus, it hails from an ancient lineage that survived long after its relatives disappeared. Its body is soft, gelatinous, and adapted to waters with extremely low oxygen, where most animals cannot survive. When threatened, it does not flee in bursts of speed, but pulls its arms upward to wrap its mantle in a dark cloak-like shroud, revealing rows of spiny projections that make it appear larger and more menacing. This posture is not aggression but illusion, a quiet trick to make the vampire squid vanish into the darkness that surrounds it. It drifts slowly through the water, feeding on falling debris rather than hunting. In a world where energy is scarce, it survives through stillness and patience, a ghost in an ocean of shadows. The hagfish brings an entirely different kind of strangeness to the deep. With no jaw and no bones, it feeds by burrowing into decaying carcasses, using a rasping tongue to scrape away flesh. When threatened, it releases vast quantities of slime, a thick gelatinous substance that expands rapidly in water. This slime can clog the gills of predators, suffocating anything that attempts to swallow or attack it. To clear itself of its own defensive slime, the hagfish ties its body into a knot and slides the knot down its length, scraping the mucus away as it goes. This knotting behavior also gives the hagfish leverage when feeding, letting it brace its body against prey as it tears away pieces. It is an animal that survives through patience, decay, and clever mechanics, thriving in environments where most creatures would find nothing but darkness and loss. Drifting slowly through the coldest reaches of the deep ocean, Greenland sharks move with the timeless calm of creatures that live for centuries. Growing at some of the slowest rates of any vertebrate, they can reach ages far beyond 200 years, making them among the longest-lived animals known. Many carry parasitic worms attached to their eyes, leaving them nearly blind, yet eyesight is not their primary tool. Their sense of smell guides them through the darkness, allowing them to find food across vast distances. They feed on fish, seals, and occasionally anything else that drifts into their path, not by speed, but by opportunity. Their longevity and slow metabolism match the deep ocean's quiet pace, where life unfolds not in moments but in centuries. In the cold dark, time itself seems to move differently, and these sharks move with it, patient and enduring, scavengers shaped by the long, quiet flow of years. Here in the deep sea, bodies become fluid, weapons become physics, light becomes biology, and time stretches far beyond human understanding. Every creature is a solution to the same problem: how to survive where pressure crushes, where food is rare, and where darkness never ends. And each solution is stranger and more beautiful than the last. Life in the deep sea shows how creatures endure crushing pressure and endless darkness, but regeneration reveals another path to survival. The ability to rebuild what was lost, to repair damage so completely that injury becomes little more than a temporary interruption. Moving from the ocean's impossible bodies into the realm of biological renewal feels like stepping into a world where time flows differently, where wounds do not scar, where limbs return, and where age itself can sometimes be reversed. These are the organisms that refuse to let harm define them, rewriting their bodies with an ease that makes regeneration seem almost casual. Axolotls embody this miracle of renewal with a gentleness that feels almost magical. When one loses a limb, the body does not seal the wound with scar tissue the way humans do. Instead, specialized immune cells clear the damaged area without triggering inflammation, leaving behind a clean slate. Cells at the injury site then transform into a mass known as a blastema, a cluster of reprogrammable cells that behave almost like embryonic tissue. From this mass, a new limb begins to grow, complete with bones, muscles, nerves, and skin. This regeneration is not limited to limbs. Axolotls can repair parts of their spinal cord, heart tissue, and even sections of their brain. Each new structure grows with clear organization, restoring function with quiet precision. In the still waters where they drift, these amphibians seem to carry time in circles rather than lines, returning again and again to wholeness. No matter how profound the injury, their bodies feel like reminders that healing, in some corners of nature, is not a struggle but a rhythm. Planarian flatworms take this concept even further, showing a level of regeneration that borders on the unbelievable. These small, soft-bodied creatures can rebuild an entire body from a single fragment if cut into multiple pieces. Each piece has the potential to develop into a complete worm, guided by gradients of signaling molecules that map out where the head should form and where the tail should emerge. Their bodies are filled with adult stem cells capable of becoming almost any tissue required. This cellular wealth allows them not only to rebuild organs, but to restore behaviors and memories stored in their simple nervous systems. In experiments, flatworms that learned to navigate mazes retained those memories even after regeneration, suggesting that information persists through rebuilding in ways still not fully understood. These worms live in a constant state of potential renewal, holding within their delicate bodies a blueprint that remains ready to rebuild at any moment. Their organisms carved from possibility itself, flowing endlessly between injury and restoration. In the drifting waters of warmer seas, an even stranger form of renewal occurs in the immortal jellyfish Turritopsis dohrnii. When faced with stress, starvation, or damage severe enough to threaten survival, it performs an astonishing reversal. The adult medusa transforms back into its juvenile polyp stage. Its cells shift identities, reverting to earlier developmental forms. In effect, it presses a biological reset button, starting its life cycle again rather than ending it. This process, known as transdifferentiation, allows the jellyfish to step back from the brink of death and begin anew, potentially repeating this cycle many times. While it is not truly immortal, predators and disease can still end its existence. The jellyfish refuses the typical constraints of aging. It drifts through the ocean carrying a quiet defiance, a reminder that even life cycles can sometimes be rewritten when survival demands it. On land, deer antlers demonstrate a regeneration story of their own, one built not from ancient simplicity, but from complex, fast-paced growth. Antlers are bones, yet they grow at a speed unmatched by any other mammalian structure. Each year, as daylight increases, hormones trigger growth beneath a soft, vascular tissue known as velvet. This velvet carries blood and nutrients at astonishing rates, feeding a controlled explosion of bone development. Over months, the antlers lengthen, branch and solidify, becoming powerful tools for display and defense. When the mating season ends, the antlers are shed, and the process prepares to begin again the next year. Researchers study these cycles to understand how mammals might one day regenerate tissues more effectively. In every antler, nature demonstrates how bone can be rebuilt, reshaped, and renewed, following a pattern as old as the forests where deer leave their silhouettes against the trees. In the shallows and reefs where sea stars glide slowly across the seafloor, regeneration takes yet another form. Many species can regrow arms lost to predators, replacing intricate networks of muscles, nerves, and water-filled channels. Some go even further. A single, severed arm, if it contains part of the central disc, can regenerate into an entirely new sea star. This ability comes from chemical gradients that radiate through their radial bodies, acting like invisible maps that direct tissues where to grow. It is a system of quiet coordination, where each arm holds the potential to become a whole, guided by signals that flow as naturally as the tides around them. Sea stars move with unhurried grace, their bodies carrying a promise of renewal with every step across the ocean floor, a reassurance that even loss can become a beginning. Together, these organisms show that survival does not always mean avoiding harm. Sometimes it means rebuilding, reversing, reimagining, or simply starting again. In their bodies, wounds fade without trace, limbs return, youth is regained, memories persist through fragmentation, and whole animals grow from parts once separated. They remind us that the boundary between damage and healing is not fixed. In nature's quieter corners, life insists on continuing, no matter how many times it must restore, reset, or rise again. The creatures that regenerate themselves show how life can rebuild from almost nothing. But some species follow a very different path. Rather than healing, they reshape the bodies of others. Parasitism and fusion turn survival into a form of biological manipulation, where one organism bends another to its will, borrowing systems, altering hormones, or merging cells until boundaries blur. Stepping into this realm feels like entering the darker, stranger workshop of evolution, where partnership, theft, and transformation intermingle in ways that stretch the very definition of what a body is supposed to be. Parasitic barnacles such as Saculina take this idea to an extraordinary extreme. When one of these creatures encounters a crab, it does not attach to the shell like ordinary barnacles. Instead, it injects a tiny larval form into a joint, slipping unnoticed beneath the crab's armor. Once inside, the parasite grows a network of root-like tendrils that spread throughout the crab's body, wrapping around organs and infiltrating tissues with quiet determination. These tendrils tap into the crab's hormonal systems and slowly take control, altering the host biology so completely that the crab stops molting, stops mating, and dedicates its energy to caring for the parasite's brood. When the barnacle produces eggs, the crab behaves as though they were its own, grooming and ventilating them with devoted precision. This manipulation affects both males and females, turning even a male crab into a devoted caretaker by rewriting hormonal cues. It is parasitism elevated into a kind of biological puppetry, where one life form quietly assumes command of another from the inside out. In the freshwater lakes of Africa, a similar manipulation occurs, but through deception rather than invasion. Cuckoo catfish take advantage of mouth-brooding cichlids, fish that protect their eggs inside their mouths, by sneaking their own eggs into the brood during spawning. The cichlid parents, acting on instinct, scoop up the intruding eggs along with their own, unaware of the switch. Catfish eggs hatch faster, and the young quickly devour the cichlid's real offspring, leaving only themselves behind. The cichlid mother continues caring for the brood, blissfully unaware that the young fish she protects are not her own. Her instincts compel her to nurture the catfish until they are large enough to fend for themselves. This method of parasitism relies not on force, but on opportunistic timing and the blind trust of parental behavior. It is a quiet, devastating trick of biology, a theft of care so subtle that the victim never realizes what has been taken. Far beneath the surface of the ocean, tongue-eating gasopods carry out one of the strangest transformations in the natural world. These parasitic crustaceans enter a fish's mouth and latch onto its tongue, feeding on blood until the tongue withers and dies. Rather than leaving the fish unable to eat, the parasite takes over the tongue's role entirely. Anchoring itself to the remaining stub, it moves as the fish moves, assisting with feeding and receiving nourishment at the same time. The fish continues living with this new tongue, often showing no sign of distress. The isopod becomes both organ and parasite, an unsettling blend of replacement and intrusion. No other known parasite fully replaces a host's functional body part in this way. It is a living prosthetic created through slow consumption, a chilling example of evolution's willingness to merge roles when survival demands it. In the deepest oceans, fusion takes on a new level of intimacy in the lives of anglerfish. Males, drastically smaller than females, are born with one task: to find a mate in the vast darkness. When a male encounters a female, he bites onto her skin, and enzymes dissolve the tissue between them. Their circulatory systems merge, and the male's organs slowly diminish until he becomes a permanent living attachment. Eventually, only his testes remain functional, drawing nutrients directly from the female's bloodstream. What would be considered a medical miracle or impossibility in most animals becomes routine here. The immune system, normally vigilant against foreign tissue, accepts this fusion fully. The pair becomes a single biological entity, two lives woven together by necessity in a place where encounters are rare and reproduction demands certainty. It is parasitism, symbiosis, and fusion intertwined into one extraordinary solution to a life lived in isolation. On land, ants show a very different kind of biological manipulation, one built not on exploitation, but on collaboration so deep it blurs the boundaries between species. Certain ants cultivate fungi in underground chambers, using carefully gathered plant material to feed their crops. These fungal gardens form the foundation of the colony's food supply, and maintaining them requires meticulous attention. The ants regulate humidity, remove waste, and even use their bodies to carry tiny symbiotic bacteria that produce natural antibiotics. These antibiotics inhibit harmful molds and protect the fungal crop from infection. The bacteria live on specialized patches of the ant's exoskeleton, fed and maintained by their hosts. This three-way partnership, ant, fungus and bacteria, predates human agriculture by millions of years. It is a miniature pharmacy run with instinctive precision, demonstrating how cooperation at microscopic and macroscopic scales can fuse into a single, thriving system. Together, these examples show how survival can involve far more than simple competition. Bodies can merge, behavior can be rewritten, instincts can be hijacked, and partnerships can form that shape entire ecosystems. In this corner of the natural world, evolution behaves like a tinkerer, experimenting with invasions, alliances, and transformations that stretch the definition of individuality. Whether through tendrils woven through a crab, an egg hidden in a parent's mouth, a tongue replaced by an intruder, a mate fused into flesh, or a pharmacy grown beneath the soil, life reveals that identity is sometimes fluid, and survival can be a shared, stolen, or entirely reimagined experience. The world of parasitism and fusion shows how bodies can be rewritten by outsiders, but the realm of reproduction reveals transformations just as astonishing. Changes of role, sex, anatomy, and even lineage. Moving from body-hacking parasites into the stranger corners of sexuality feels like drifting from one form of biological creativity into another, where evolution bends rules that seem unbreakable and invents systems that look almost contradictory. Here, reproduction becomes a stage where survival writes its most surprising scripts. Among the most remarkable of these systems is the reproductive strategy of seahorses. In these delicate, drifting fish, pregnancy is not the role of the female but of the male. The female deposits her eggs into a specialized brood pouch on the male's abdomen, a vascularized chamber rich with blood vessels that function much like a placenta. Inside this pouch, the male controls salinity to match the outside environment, preventing osmotic shock to the developing embryos. He regulates oxygen levels, nutrient flow, and waste removal, turning his body into a protective nursery. Over the course of the pregnancy, the pouch thickens and expands until it resembles a swollen abdomen. When the young are fully formed, the male undergoes strong muscular contractions, expelling dozens or even hundreds of tiny, perfectly formed offspring into the water. It is one of the few examples in the animal kingdom where paternal care begins before birth, a gentle inversion of reproductive roles that shows parenthood can be shaped in entirely unexpected ways. Clownfish take reproductive flexibility in a different direction, structuring their entire social system around size and change. These fish live in small groups dominated by a single large female below her, is the dominant male, and beneath him are progressively smaller non-breeding individuals. This hierarchy remains stable until the female dies. When that happens, the dominant male does not simply take her place socially. He undergoes a complete transition, changing sex to become the new breeding female hormones shift. Reproductive organs reorganize, and behavior transforms to match the new role. The next largest individual then becomes the new breeding male, maintaining the structure of the harem. This ability allows the group to avoid reproductive collapse, ensuring continuity even in the face of loss. What looks like a rigid hierarchy is actually a fluid system built on the remarkable adaptability of the clownfish body. Far from coral reefs, the spotted hyena's reproductive system adds another layer of complexity, one that reshapes the social fabric of the entire species. Female spotted hyenas possess a pseudopenis, an elongated clitoris through which they mate, urinate, and even give birth. This structure forms because females produce unusually high levels of certain hormones in the womb, leading to masculinized genitalia that are unique among mammals. This anatomy creates formidable challenges. Birth occurs through the narrow pseudopenis, often resulting in complications for first-time mothers, yet the same hormonal environment that causes these difficulties also fuels the species' social strength. Female hyenas are larger, more dominant, and more aggressive than males, leading clans with an authority rarely seen in other large mammals. Their dominance shapes everything from feeding order to territorial defense, creating a matriarchal society built on complex interactions and intense bonds. Their unusual anatomy becomes both a symbol of power and a reminder of the curious trade-offs that evolution sometimes demands. Komodo dragons reveal yet another evolutionary surprise: the ability to reproduce without males when circumstances require it. When isolated or without access to a mate, a female can switch to parthenogenesis, a process where unfertilized eggs begin dividing and develop into viable offspring. These offspring are genetic clones of the mother, though not identical in every detail. The process acts like a biological backup plan, allowing a single female who arrives on a new island to establish a population. Parthenogenesis is not the preferred strategy, but it is an option that ensures survival when conditions are harsh or lonely. For a species living on scattered islands and shaped by cycles of scarcity and opportunity, this flexibility allows Komodo dragons to maintain their lineage no matter how isolated they become. Together, these examples show that reproduction is far from a fixed blueprint. Roles can reverse, bodies can transform, hierarchies can shift, and entire lineages can begin from a single parent. Whether through male pregnancy, sex-changing hierarchies, anatomical reinvention, or self-cloning adaptations, evolution demonstrates again and again that life will bend its own rules in extraordinary ways. The strange strategies of reproduction show how life bends its own rules, but the senses reveal how animals experience worlds completely hidden to human perception. Moving from unusual births into the realm of sensory superpowers feels like stepping from one dimension into another, a place where colors multiply, electricity becomes visible, heat glows like lanterns, and sound folds itself into precise geometry. These creatures navigate reality not with stronger senses, but with senses tuned to forms of information humans barely register. Their perception is not just sharper, it is different, layered, and filled with signals that paint the world in ways most eyes and ears can never follow. Mantis shrimp sit at the peak of this sensory spectrum, living in a visual universe so elaborate that human language struggles to describe it. While humans rely on 3 types of photoreceptor cells to see colour, these small crustaceans possess up to 16, arranged like rows of specialised filters across their eyes. This allows them to detect ultraviolet patterns, subtle gradients of polarised light, and wavelengths far beyond human limits. Their eyes move independently, scanning their surroundings in overlapping fields of view, building a constantly refreshed mosaic of information. To a mantis shrimp, the shimmer on a shell, the reflection off a pebble, or the flicker of another shrimp's carapace might contain layers of meaning invisible to other animals. Their world is a shifting rainbow written in invisible ink, full of signals that only their extraordinary vision can pass. Each glance delivers more complexity than an entire human panorama, turning coral reefs into living kaleidoscopes. Sharks inhabit an entirely different sensory realm, built not on light but on electricity. Along their snouts and heads lie tiny gel-filled pores called the ampullae of Lorenzini, each one connected to a network of cells that detect faint electric fields. Every heartbeat, every muscle twitch, every movement of a living creature generates a unique electrical pulse. Sharks can sense these pulses even when buried beneath layers of sand or hidden in murky water. A fish lying perfectly still cannot mask its presence from this electric sense. Its heartbeat gives it away. Sharks use this ability during hunting, navigation, and even migration, mapping the world through electrical gradients that drift across the seafloor. Is a quiet sense, one that reveals life where sight and scent fail, turning the ocean into a field of subtle sparks that guide the shark with unerring precision. On land, the star-nosed mole experiences touch with a speed and clarity that outpaces vision. Living in tunnels and wet soils where sight is all but useless, it relies on a strange structure at the tip of its snout, a star-shaped crown of 22 fleshy rays. Each ray is covered in thousands of tiny sensory receptors called Eimer's organs, forming an ultra-sensitive touch apparatus that processes information faster than the human visual system. When the mole encounters potential food, it touches, analyzes, and decides whether to eat within fractions of a second. Its brain is wired to interpret these sensations instantly, creating a tactile map of the world as vivid as vision. Every movement of the star-shaped nose sweeps across the environment like a painter's brush, filling in texture, shape, and detail in the blink of an eye. In darkness, the mole moves as confidently as if the world were brightly lit. Pit vipers take their sensory abilities into the realm of heat. On either side of their snouts are deep membrane-lined pits that detect tiny differences in infrared radiation. To a pit viper, heat is not just warmth, it is shape. A mouse moving through the night appears as a glowing form, its radiant heat outlining ears, limbs, and the gentle rise and fall of breath. Even in total darkness, these snakes can strike with near-perfect accuracy, guided by the thermal shadow cast by their prey. The brain fuses infrared information with visual cues, creating a composite image that blends two worlds into one. This sense becomes especially powerful during nocturnal hunts, when body heat is often the only reliable signal. Where humans see only darkness, pit vipers see outlines of life drawn in warmth. In murky tropical rivers, elephant fish craft their own sensory landscape using electricity. These fish generate a weak electric field around their bodies, a kind of electromagnetic bubble that extends outward into the water. When objects, plants, rocks, or other animals disrupt this field, The fish detect those distortions with specialized receptors along their skin. This allows them to build an internal map of their surroundings, sensing shapes, textures, and movements through the electric patterns that ripple back to them. It is a form of underwater echolocation, but instead of sound, it relies on current. In the dim, silt-filled waters where visibility is low, elephant fish move gracefully, following the contours of an environment rendered in invisible lines of electricity. Owls complete this collection with a mastery of sound that borders on mathematical precision. Their ears are set at slightly different heights on their skulls, allowing them to detect minute differences in the time it takes for sound to reach each ear. This creates a three-dimensional auditory map, letting them pinpoint prey with uncanny accuracy. In a forest at night, the faint scurry of a rodent beneath leaves becomes a clear target. The owl turns its head, triangulating sound through asymmetry, and strikes in complete silence. Its wings are shaped to muffle airflow, its feathers arranged to break turbulence, making the owl's flight nearly soundless. Its prey never hears it coming, and the owl never loses track of its target. To these birds, sound is not a simple warning or signal. It is geometry, a spatial language that reveals distance and direction with perfect clarity. Each of these creatures perceives the world through senses tuned to information humans barely notice. They see colors that do not exist in human vision, read electricity like a map, feel textures faster than sight, interpret heat as shape, bend current into images, and hear with spatial accuracy that borders on art. Together, they remind us that reality is not fixed. It shifts depending on who is looking, listening, touching, or sensing. And some animals live in worlds far richer and stranger than anything human experience can capture. Leaving behind the extraordinary senses that shape how animals experience the world, intelligence reveals how they think within it. This shift feels like moving from color into conversation, from perception into problem-solving, memory, strategy, and even emotion. Here, minds take forms as fluid as bodies, emerging in unexpected places and expressing themselves through puzzles, tools, dances, whistles, and behaviors that mirror the complexity of thought itself. Intelligence is not a single trait, but a spectrum of solutions, and each species finds its own way to understand and interact with its surroundings. Octopuses sit at one end of this spectrum with minds that feel almost alien. Their nervous systems are not centralized like those of mammals, but distributed, with large clusters of neurons housed in each arm. This means that every arm can explore, grasp, taste, and solve simple problems with a degree of independence. When an octopus manipulates an object, its arms are not merely following instructions from the brain, they are making decisions of their own, sending and receiving information in real time. Despite this unusual wiring, octopuses recognize individual humans, remember interactions, and learn by watching others. In aquariums, they have been known to unscrew jars, escape enclosures, and even squirt water at keepers they dislike. Their memories are powerful yet dispersed, stored across neural networks that mirror their fluid bodies. Intelligence, for them, is not confined to a single place, but ripples outward like currents through water. Crows show a very different kind of brilliance, built on planning and invention. These birds use tools in ways once believed to belong exclusively to humans and a handful of primates. They shape sticks into hooks, fold leaves into probes, and even twist bits of wire when natural materials are unavailable. In controlled experiments, crows solve multi-step puzzles, performing actions in a specific order to unlock food rewards. They demonstrate foresight, understanding that certain tools are needed later and storing them for future use. Their problem-solving blends creativity with reasoning, and their social intelligence allows them to remember faces, distinguish between friendly and threatening humans, and even pass this knowledge to other crows. Their minds do not simply respond to the present moment. They anticipate the future, crafting strategies that reveal a deep cognitive flexibility. Dolphins build their intelligence around communication and identity. In the open ocean, where visibility can be limited and groups span large distances, sound becomes the heart of their social world. Each dolphin develops a unique signature whistle early in life, a sound that functions much like a name. These whistles are used to call individuals, maintain group cohesion, and reconnect after separation. Dolphins respond to their own whistle, even when produced artificially, and pass modified versions of these calls to their offspring. This vocal labeling suggests a system of identity and recognition woven into their communication. Their acoustic environment becomes a map of relationships, where each whistle marks a place within the fluid structure of the pod. Intelligence here takes the form of memory, language-like signaling, and social learning that binds groups into cohesive communities. Bees demonstrate collective intelligence of a very different sort. When a hive becomes overcrowded and must relocate, scout bees search for new homes, evaluating potential sites for size, entrance safety, and environmental conditions. Once they return, they convey their findings through dances, movements that transmit direction, distance, and enthusiasm. Other bees inspect these sites and offer their own dances in agreement or disagreement. Over time, the dances converge, and once enough bees support the same location, the swarm moves as a unit. This process functions like a vote, a decentralized decision-making system with remarkable accuracy. Without words, leaders, or conflict, bees use movement and consensus to choose the best future for the colony. Their intelligence is not housed in any individual, but emerges from the interactions between thousands of tiny minds working toward a shared goal. Rats reveal emotional intelligence in ways that feel strikingly familiar. When presented with a scenario where one rat is trapped and another is free, the free rat often works to release its companion, even when a tempting reward such as food is available. This behavior suggests empathy, a concern for the well-being of another, motivated not by instinct alone but by social bonds. Rat brains share structural similarities with those of humans, and their reward circuits activate during moments of cooperation. These quiet gestures of compassion blur the boundary between instinct and feeling, showing that empathy is not a human invention, but a thread woven through the mammalian world. And then there are slime molds, organisms without neurons, brains, or nervous systems at all, yet capable of solving problems that challenge much more complex creatures. These single-celled networks move by pulsing their gel-like bodies, extending tendrils along chemical gradients to find food. When confronted with a maze, a slime mold spreads outward, retracts unproductive paths, and eventually forms the shortest route between points. It behaves as though computing the optimal solution, storing traces of past paths in its shifting body. This chemical memory allows it to avoid mistakes and refine its strategy, functioning as a primitive but effective form of cognition. Intelligence, in this case, takes shape not through brain cells, but through feedback loops, oscillations, and the logic of growth. Together, these examples reveal that intelligence is not a single destination but countless pathways. Minds evolve in arms, wings, whistles, hives, and even gelatinous webs, each tuned to its own world, whether recognizing faces, building tools, naming companions, voting through dance, empathizing across bars, or solving puzzles without a brain. These creatures show that thought can emerge wherever life needs it, in forms as varied and astonishing as the natural world itself. Intelligence reveals how animals think through the challenges of life, but extreme adaptations show what happens when survival pushes bodies to their limits. Here, evolution stretches physiology into shapes and strategies that feel almost impossible. Creatures freezing solid without dying, birds flying where air barely exists, insects drinking fog, and animals that wait out the world itself by pausing life at the edge of nothingness. Moving into these examples feels like stepping into a catalogue of nature's boldest experiments, where the boundary between life and death becomes flexible, and endurance takes forms few would imagine. Wood frogs begin this journey with a feat that seems to contradict the very idea of being alive. During Arctic winters, temperatures drop so low that surviving the cold demands more than shelter or insulation. These frogs allow themselves to freeze solid. Their heartbeat stops, their breathing halts, and ice forms around and between their organs. Yet, instead of dying, they survive by flooding their cells with glucose and urea, natural antifreeze compounds that prevent ice crystals from forming inside delicate tissues. Ice outside the cells is tolerable, but ice inside would rupture membranes and shred organs. The frog's body regulates this with astonishing precision, shifting into a suspended state as temperatures fall. When spring finally softens the world again, the frogs thaw, their hearts restart, and they resume hopping as if waking from a long cold dream. They are reminders that, in some corners of nature, the difference between frozen and live is simply a matter of chemistry and patience. High above the world's tallest mountains, bar-headed geese push endurance into the realm of flight. Each year, they migrate over the Himalayas, soaring at altitudes where oxygen levels fall to a third of what they are at sea level. At heights where human climbers require bottled oxygen to survive, these birds glide with steady wing beats, carried by adaptations that make thin air a navigable landscape. Their hemoglobin binds oxygen more tightly than that of most birds or mammals, allowing them to extract every possible molecule from each breath. Their lungs function with remarkable efficiency, funneling air in a continuous flow rather than the tidal breathing used by mammals. Even their flight muscles are adapted, packed with capillaries and mitochondria that keep them energized despite the lack of oxygen. At dawn, silhouetted against the rising light above jagged peaks, they seem like impossible travelers, drifting across a sky where the air should be too thin to sustain life. Far from icy mountains, the desert beetle survives through a relationship with water so delicate it borders on alchemy. In the fog-laden mornings of certain deserts, these beetles climb dunes and position themselves facing the wind. Their shells are covered in tiny hydrophilic bumps, microscopic structures that attract moisture. As fog travels across the dunes, water droplets condense on the bumps, slowly gathering into larger beads that roll down hydrophobic channels toward the beetle's mouth. In this way, they drink directly from the air, harvesting water where rainfall is nearly non-existent. This method turns each foggy morning into a life-saving ritual, a quiet moment where the beetle transforms shifting desert winds into the simplest and most essential resource. In the frigid waters surrounding Antarctica, Icefish float like pale spectres in a realm too cold for most vertebrates. These fish lack red blood cells entirely. Their blood is translucent, carrying oxygen dissolved directly in plasma rather than delivered through hemoglobin. This unusual adaptation reduces blood viscosity, making circulation easier in freezing temperatures. To prevent ice from forming within their bodies, they produce antifreeze glycoproteins that bind to small ice crystals and halt their growth. These proteins flow through their blood and tissues like invisible guardians, keeping their internal environment liquid despite sub-zero temperatures. Their bodies are shaped by cold not as an enemy, but as an architect, refining physiology to match the quiet, icy world they inhabit. Tardigrades take extreme survival into a realm so far removed from typical life that they seem almost alien. These microscopic creatures can endure radiation, crushing pressure, extreme heat, freezing cold, and even the vacuum of space. When conditions become unbearable, they enter cryptobiosis, a state in which they expel water from their cells, curl into a tiny husk, and nearly halt all metabolic activity. In this form, they are neither fully alive nor dead, suspended in a kind of biological stasis. They can remain in this state for decades, waiting for moisture to return. When water finally reaches them again, they rehydrate, stretch their limbs, and resume life's slow, deliberate pace. Their resilience is so profound that tardigrades have survived exposure to space during scientific experiments, enduring vacuum and cosmic radiation without lasting harm. They embody endurance taken to its absolute limit. Life paused at the brink of nothingness. Lungfish carry a different kind of patience, shaped by drought rather than cold or vacuum. These ancient fish live in regions where seasonal rains bring abundance, but dry spells turn rivers into cracked mud. To survive, lungfish burrow into the soft earth as water recedes, secreting mucus that hardens into a protective cocoon. Inside this shell, they slow their metabolism and rely on their primitive skin-lined lungs to breathe air trapped within the surrounding soil. Some species have been known to endure years of drought this way, waiting calmly for the return of the rain. When storms finally arrive and water seeps back into the ground, the lungfish breaks free, emerging as though waking from a deep, earthy sleep. Their survival is a testament to patience, a quiet demonstration that persistence can sometimes be as powerful as movement or strength. All these adaptations show that extreme environments do not simply push life to its limits, they reshape it entirely. Creatures freeze, fly, distill water from mist, make blood without cells, fold themselves into suspended animation, or wait out dry years deep beneath the soil. Each strategy is a reminder that survival is often a negotiation, a creative dance between environment and biology, where evolution crafts solutions as varied and astonishing as the challenges themselves. Extreme adaptations show how life endures impossible conditions, but weapons and illusions reveal how some creatures meet danger, not with endurance, but with creativity. Here, survival becomes performance, a mixture of chemistry, mimicry, deception, and engineered precision. Instead of hard shells or strong jaws, these animals wield cleverness and spectacle, turning their very bodies into tools that surprise predators and prey alike. Moving into this realm feels like entering nature's workshop of hidden mechanisms, where every defense is a small masterpiece of design. Few defenses are as dramatic or as startling as the bombardier beetle's chemical spray. Deep within its abdomen, the beetle carries two separate reservoirs filled with reactive chemicals. one containing hydroquinones, the other hydrogen peroxide. On their own, these chemicals are harmless, but when the beetle senses danger, it channels both into a specialized reaction chamber lined with catalytic enzymes. The moment the ingredients mix, they ignite in a rapid exothermic burst. This chemical explosion heats the mixture to near boiling, producing a scalding spray that shoots from the beetle's abdomen with a sharp popping sound. The spray emerges in precise pulses rather than a continuous stream, controlled by tiny valves that open and close rapidly, preventing the beetle's own body from overheating. Directed with remarkable accuracy, this burst can deter predators many times larger than the beetle itself, from frogs to birds to curious mammals. What looks like simple insect armor hides a microscopic laboratory, a natural pressure chamber engineered with precision that even human chemists study to understand controlled explosions. The bombardier beetle does not just defend itself. It performs a tiny, perfectly timed chemical eruption that transforms chemistry into survival. In the shifting currents of the ocean, the mimic octopus uses illusion rather than force, turning its flexible body into a palette of shapes, colors, and postures. This small cephalopod can flatten itself, stretch its arms, coil them together, or wave them in patterns that mimic a wide range of venomous or dangerous species. When imitating a lionfish, it spreads its arms like radiating spines, swaying gently to simulate the toxic fins of its model. To resemble a sea snake, it hides 6 of its arms in a burrow and waves the remaining 2 in opposite directions, creating the unmistakable double-ended threat display of a venomous serpent. When danger calls for subtlety, it glides low across the sand, mimicking the smooth, rippling outline of a flatfish. These disguises are not random. The mimic octopus chooses its impersonation based on the predators it faces. If confronted by a species that avoids sea snakes but not lionfish, it selects the appropriate form. This decision-making shows a degree of behavioral flexibility rare in animals, especially those without complex social structures. The ocean becomes its stage, and every predator becomes an audience. The octopus must outwit. Through carefully controlled color shifts, posture changes, and motion patterns, the mimic octopus transforms survival into a kind of performance art, a blend of instinct and improvisation shaped by the dangers of the sea. Together, these creatures show that strength is not always found in size or speed. Sometimes it lies in chemistry that detonates in a split second, or in bodies that fold themselves into illusions so convincing they outsmart entire ecosystems, whether exploding with boiling spray or slipping into the guise of a venomous shadow. These animals turn creativity into survival, proving once again that evolution's most impressive tools are often its most imaginative. Weapons and illusions show how animals defend themselves through clever tactics. But body chemistry reveals an entirely different layer of biological creativity, one where color, toxins, mucus, pigments, and even the very composition of blood become tools for survival. Entering this realm feels like stepping into a moving laboratory where organisms mix formulas, express emotions through shifting hues, and build defenses at the molecular level. Here, color becomes language, chemistry becomes armor, and the boundaries between beauty and danger blur in remarkable ways. Horseshoe crabs embody this chemical ingenuity in a substance most creatures never reveal: their blood. Unlike the red hemoglobin-based blood found in mammals, their blood carries oxygen using hemocyanin, a copper-based molecule that turns a brilliant blue when exposed to air. This striking colour is only the beginning of its uniqueness. When their blood encounters even trace amounts of bacterial toxins, it clots instantly, forming a gel that isolates the threat. This reaction is so sensitive that medical science relies on it to test the safety of vaccines, surgical implants, and intravenous drugs. A small amount of horseshoe crab blood can reveal contamination invisible to any microscope. While the animals themselves seem ancient and slow-moving, carrying shells that resemble living fossils, their internal chemistry functions as a biological alarm system of extraordinary precision. It is a reminder that ancient creatures sometimes carry the most refined biochemistry, shaped through hundreds of millions of years of quiet evolution. Squid and cuttlefish turn chemistry into communication, using skin that behaves almost like a digital display. Their bodies contain millions of chromatophores, tiny sacs filled with pigments, each surrounded by rings of muscles. When the muscles contract, the sacs expand, revealing colours ranging from deep browns to vibrant yellows. Layers of iridescent cells beneath them reflect light into blues, greens and pinks. By controlling these structures in coordinated patterns, squid and cuttlefish shift colour instantly. One moment they blend into a sandy seafloor, becoming nearly invisible. The next, they flash bold ripples of light during mating displays, or when startled, these patterns can signal aggression, curiosity, or submission. Their skin becomes a living language, expressing thoughts and emotions through rapid, mesmerizing changes. This ability to broadcast complex messages across their bodies without sound or scent turns the ocean around them into a stage, where camouflage and conversation flow together in waves of color. Poison dart frogs show chemistry through warning rather than concealment. Their vivid blues, yellows, oranges, and reds serve as signals to predators that their skin contains powerful alkaloid toxins. These toxins do not originate within the frogs themselves, but from the ants, mites, and other small arthropods they consume in the rainforest. Their bodies concentrate and store these compounds, turning diet into defense. When kept in captivity and deprived of these toxin-bearing meals, the frogs lose their chemical firepower entirely, becoming harmless despite retaining their bright coloration. In the wild, however, a single touch can deliver enough toxin to paralyze or kill predators many times their size. Their bright colors act not only as a warning, but as a testament to the intricate connection between environment, diet, and chemistry. Each hue is a declaration that danger lies within, written boldly across skin that has evolved to be as beautiful as it is lethal. Monarch butterflies use a similar strategy, but their toxin comes from the milkweed plants they feed on during their larval stage. Milkweed contains cardiac glycosides, substances that interfere with the hearts of vertebrates. Monarch caterpillars absorb these toxins and store them in their tissues, carrying them through metamorphosis into adulthood. The butterfly's iconic orange and black wings serve as a coded warning to birds. This meal will taste awful and may cause illness. Birds learn quickly, and the pattern becomes a universal symbol of danger throughout the ecosystem. As the butterflies migrate across vast distances, journeys spanning thousands of kilometers, their colors function both as camouflage in flight and as unmistakable signals when resting. Their elegance hides a sharp chemical truth, one learned through generations of fearful predators. The sea hare takes chemical defense into a different medium. This soft-bodied sea slug produces clouds of purple ink when threatened, but this is no simple dye. The ink contains opaline mucus that disrupts the sensory systems of predators, confusing their ability to smell and taste. When a predator relies on chemical cues to hunt, as many fish and crustaceans do, the sudden flood of ink overloads their senses. They lose track of the sea hare and may even attack the cloud itself, mistaking it for the animal. The sea hare uses this moment of confusion to escape with slow, deliberate strokes. Its defense is not speed or force, but disruption. A smoke screen built from biochemistry that turns the predator's own senses against it. Skunks round out this chemical catalogue with a defense so potent that it has become a symbol of odour worldwide. Their spray contains sulphur-rich compounds known as thiols, substances that bind strongly to scent receptors and linger stubbornly in the air. A few milligrams dispersed through the wind can be detected by humans miles away. When threatened, a skunk raises its tail, stamps its feet, and gives ample warning before releasing its infamous spray. If ignored, it unleashes a fine mist aimed with surprising precision. The smell is not just unpleasant but overpowering, designed to teach predators a lesson they will never forget. In an ecosystem full of claws and teeth, the skunk wields chemistry as a shield, relying on scent potent enough to shape the behaviour of animals far larger and faster than itself. In all these creatures, chemistry becomes an artist, a storyteller, and a guardian. Blood turns blue, skin becomes a billboard, colour becomes a warning, toxins transform diet into armour, ink clouds create confusion, and scent becomes a boundary line few dare cross. Each adaptation is a quiet masterpiece, proving that survival often depends not on force, but on the subtle power of molecules arranged with evolutionary precision. Body chemistry shows how creatures wear danger, colour and molecules as shields, but camouflage reveals another kind of brilliance, one built on silence, stillness, and the art of not being seen. Moving into this realm feels like watching nature become painter, sculptor, and illusionist all at once. Here, survival is not won through strength or speed, but through disappearing into the world so completely that predator and prey move past one another without ever knowing the other was there. Camouflage is not just a trick of appearance, it is a deep conversation between animal and environment, written in texture, shadow, posture, and patience. Leaf-tailed geckos are among the most astonishing practitioners of this art. Living in the forests of Madagascar, they press themselves flat against tree bark, aligning their bodies with the contours of lichen, moss, and decaying wood. Their skin is patterned with intricate markings that mimic everything around them. Tiny veins like those found on leaves, irregular patches that look like fungal growth, and edges shaped like torn foliage. Even their tails appear frayed, as though they were once part of a leaf that has long since dried. When perfectly still, a leaf-tailed gecko vanishes into the tree trunk, merging with the forest so convincingly that only the subtle shift of an eye gives it away. Their camouflage is not static, but a constantly tuned partnership with bark, shadow, and leaf litter, each detail crafted through evolution to turn their bodies into living replicas of the forest floor. In the far north, Arctic hares adapt their appearance not to mimic a single object, but to keep pace with the seasons themselves. During the warmer months, their fur is brown and mottled, blending with bare soil, scattered stones, and patches of tundra vegetation. As days shorten and winter's grip tightens, hormonal signals triggered by decreasing daylight cause their summer coat to fall away and a dense layer of white fur to grow in its place. This pristine white merges seamlessly with snowfields that stretch for kilometers. The transformation is gradual yet precise, a living calendar written across their bodies. When spring returns and patches of earth begin to peek through melting snow, the hairs shift back, letting brown creep into their coat once more. Their camouflage is not an image frozen in time, but a moving cycle that mirrors the rhythm of the landscape, ensuring they remain invisible no matter how the world changes around them. Cuttlefish take camouflage to another dimension entirely, using sensory abilities and skin architecture that defy comprehension. Their eyes detect not only color, but the polarization of light, allowing them to read textures and contrasts invisible to other animals. This information flows instantly into millions of chromatophores and iridophores beneath their skin, which expand, contract, shimmer, or darken in coordinated waves. In a fraction of a second, the cuttlefish can shift from a bright, rippling display to a perfect imitation of sand, coral, or seaweed. They match the fine grain of a sea floor, the stippled shadows cast by distant surfaces, or the shifting patterns created by broken light. Their camouflage is dynamic, fluid, and deeply intelligent, an instantaneous tailoring of the body to the surrounding world. To predators, the cuttlefish does not hide. It simply ceases to exist as a separate shape, dissolving into the landscape with breathtaking precision. On land, leaf insects express a quieter version of this illusion. Their bodies flatten into broad leaf-shaped forms, complete with veins, ridges, and spots that mimic decay. But it is not just appearance that protects them. When the wind blows, these insects sway gently, rocking in the same rhythm as the surrounding foliage. Their movements are soft and unpredictable, imitating the way a real leaf responds to shifting air currents. Even their coloration holds the illusion of damage, small brown patches that suggest bite marks or fungal discoloration. Predators searching for movement or clean lines overlook them entirely. Each insect becomes a silent performer in the forest's constant choreography, carried by the same breezes that disguise it. In the ocean, the stonefish hides through a different kind of stillness. With skin patterned like coral rubble and bodies shaped to resemble encrusted stones, these fish rest motionless on the seafloor, blending so completely that divers sometimes mistake them for rocks. Their camouflage is not delicate or colourful, but rugged and heavy, a mask carved from underwater debris. This disguise hides one of the most venomous spines in the sea. When stepped on, the stonefish delivers toxins that cause intense pain and systemic shock. The danger lies not in its movement, but in its refusal to move at all. Camouflage becomes both shield and trap, allowing the stonefish to ambush prey and avoid detection by predators until the last possible moment. Among corals, the pygmy seahorse perfects miniature mimicry with astonishing fidelity. These tiny fish attach themselves to the branches of Gorgonian corals, choosing hosts whose colours match their own. Over time, their bodies adapt to the coral's palette, shifting into pinks, yellows, or purples that blend seamlessly into the background. Even the granular bumps on their skin resemble the polyps of the coral, complete with texture and shading that match their surroundings. They're so well blended that researchers often discover them only after inspecting photographs taken moments earlier, realizing that what looked like part of the coral was actually a living creature. Their camouflage is not just a visual trick, but an intimate partnership with a single coral home, the two becoming nearly indistinguishable. Each of these animals shows that invisibility is not an absence but a form of mastery, whether through flattened bodies, seasonal coats, shimmering skin, rhythmic swaying, stony stillness, or microscopic mimicry, they turn their surroundings into protection. Camouflage becomes a gentle agreement with the environment. They promise to match its colours, shapes, and movements until the line between creature and world disappears. Camouflage shows how bodies can vanish into their surroundings, but biochemical oddities reveal what happens when chemistry itself becomes a weapon, a signal, or a finely tuned instrument of survival. Moving into this realm feels like stepping into nature's silent laboratory, where molecules drift across winds, toxins hide in feathers, and electricity crackles within living flesh. Here, biology behaves like a chemist, assembling compounds of astonishing potency, precision, and purpose. Male emperor moths begin this journey with a sensory feat built entirely from chemistry carried by air. Their enormous feathery antennae are covered in microscopic receptors that detect single molecules of female pheromone drifting through the night. These chemical signals can travel astonishing distances on the wind, and the moth's antennae are so sensitive that it can follow a faint invisible trail from more than 10 kilometers away. Each delicate plume of the antenna increases surface area, maximizing contact with airborne molecules. The moth does not rely on sight or sound. It navigates through a shifting landscape of scent, drawn toward a partner it may never see until the final moments. This ability turns the open sky into an intricate map of chemical gradients, allowing a tiny insect to locate another through nothing more than the faintest whisper of molecules and motion. The bombardier beetle brings chemistry to a far more explosive place. Earlier cousins of this insect experimented with simpler defensive sprays, but the modern bombardier beetle refined those tools into a controlled reaction chamber of remarkable sophistication. Inside its abdomen, 2 separate chemical reservoirs remain inert until danger approaches. When threatened, the beetle pumps both chemicals into a chamber lined with enzymes that trigger a violent reaction. The mixture flashes to near boiling temperature, producing a burst of pressure that ejects a hot spray accompanied by a popping sound. Despite the heat and intensity of the reaction, the beetle's body remains unharmed. Its internal valves and heat-resistant tissues regulate the explosion, releasing the spray in rapid pulses to prevent self-damage. Chemists have studied this mechanism to better understand controlled combustion, marveling at how an insect performs, on a miniature scale, what humans achieve only through deliberate engineering. The beetle carries a weapon that is not merely chemical, but architectural. A natural reaction chamber perfected through evolution. Electric eels take biochemical innovation into the realm of current and voltage. Though called eels, they are actually a type of knife fish, and their bodies contain thousands of specialized electrical cells known as electrocytes. These cells stack end to end like components in a long-living battery. When the eel chooses to deliver a shock, it activates these cells simultaneously, generating a pulse of electricity that can reach up to 600 volts. This surge can stun prey, deter predators, and even help the eel sense its surroundings by monitoring how electric fields distort around objects. The eel's body becomes both weapon and sensor, projecting a field that reveals the world in shimmering electrical contours. In murky waters where sight is limited, this electric sense gives the eel an awareness that extends beyond the reach of light, allowing it to hunt and navigate with uncanny precision. Komodo dragons wield a biochemical arsenal of their own, blending infection and venom into a single predatory strategy. For years, their lethality was attributed to the bacteria that thrive in their mouths, which enter wounds and weaken prey through infection. More recent research suggests another layer: venom glands that produce anticoagulants and proteins that lower blood pressure, causing rapid blood loss and shock. When a Komodo dragon bites its prey, the combination of mechanical damage, bacterial invasion, and venom-induced bleeding creates a cascade of physiological failure. The prey weakens quickly, allowing the dragon to track it with its powerful sense of smell until it collapses. This hybrid system blurs the line between infectious attack and chemical weapon, showing that even large predators can wield biochemistry as part of their arsenal. Pufferfish demonstrate how toxins can be harvested rather than manufactured. Their bodies contain tetrodotoxin, one of the most potent neurotoxins known. This compound is not produced by the fish themselves, but by symbiotic bacteria living within their tissues. Tetrodotoxin blocks sodium channels in nerve cells, preventing signals from passing through. Muscles cannot contract, breathing stops, and the victim succumbs in silence. Despite its lethality, some animals, including certain snakes, have evolved resistance. Humans, meanwhile, have learned to prepare pufferfish as delicacies in carefully regulated settings, where expert chefs remove the toxic organs to avoid poisoning. The fish's bright, unassuming appearance hides a biochemical secret so potent that only a few milligrams can end a life. A quiet killer shaped not by the fish, but by its microbial partners. Cone snails take toxicity a step further with a delivery system refined into a biological syringe. These slow-moving mollusks hunt fish, worms, and other snails using a harpoon-like tooth connected to a venom gland. When prey approaches, the cone snail fires the harpoon with remarkable speed, faster than the human eye can detect. The venom that follows is a complex mixture of conotoxins, each one targeting specific neural pathways. Some block pain signals, others paralyze muscles, and some halt communication within the nervous system entirely. A fish struck by a cone snail freezes almost instantly, its body locked in paralysis before it can flee. The precision of this venom has attracted scientific interest, with researchers studying conotoxins for potential medical uses, including pain relief far more effective than traditional opioids. The hooded pituhui of New Guinea carries venom not in fangs or glands, but in its feathers and skin. This bird contains batrachotoxin, the same potent compound found in poisoned dart frogs. Handling the pituhui can cause numbness or tingling, and predators quickly learn to avoid its bright plumage. The toxin likely comes from insects in its diet, which deposit chemical precursors the bird then stores in its tissues. Its vivid orange and black feathers act as a warning, a signal that touching or biting this bird may lead to paralysis or worse. It is a rare example of a poisonous bird turning its entire body into a shield of chemical deterrence. Finally, the platypus stands as one of the few mammals to wield venom, using it not for hunting, but for competition. During breeding season, males develop active venom glands connected to sharp spurs on their ankles. When threatened or during fights with other males, they deliver a painful dose of venom that causes intense swelling and incapacitation. While not lethal to humans, the pain can last for days, resisting conventional painkillers. The platypus, already a mosaic of unusual traits with its duck-like bill and egg-laying reproduction, adds venomous rivalry to its list of evolutionary surprises. Its venom reflects a different kind of battle, not for food, but for dominance and mates. Together, these biochemical marvels show how evolution shapes molecules, electricity, and toxins into tools of staggering ingenuity. Whether drifting through air, erupting in bursts of heat, shocking through water, silencing nerves, numbing touch, or enforcing rivalry. These adaptations reveal a world where chemistry becomes as vital and expressive as flesh and bone. The world of biochemical oddities shows how chemistry becomes language, weapon, and warning, but communication reveals something even deeper: the ways animals share information, coordinate, and build relationships across distances, species, and time. Stepping into this realm feels like entering a tapestry woven from sound, vibration, posture, and memory. Here, voices rumble through the earth, alliances form through play, and entire cultures ripple across oceans in songs carried by migrating giants. Social minds turn survival into community, connection, and cooperation. Elephants begin this journey with conversations so low and powerful that human ears cannot hear them. Their infrasonic rumbles travel not only through the air, but through the ground itself, vibrating across kilometers of savanna. Other elephants pick up these vibrations through pressure-sensitive tissues in their feet and trunks, translating tremors into meaning. A call might announce a new water source, warn of danger, or search for missing family members. Mothers separated from their calves rumble softly, and calves answer with high, trembling notes that reverberate through the landscape. Matriarchs use these low-frequency signals to guide herds during migration, maintaining cohesion among individuals spread across vast distances. What seems like silence to us is, for elephants, a steady background of messages, a language woven through earth and air, holding families together through vibrations older than memory. Meerkats show another form of social intelligence, one built on vigilance and trust. While the group forages, at least one individual stands upright on a mound or rock, scanning the horizon for danger. This sentinel duty rotates naturally, with each meerkat taking its turn without prompting. The sentinel gives quiet murmurs to reassure the group that the watch is active, and sharp, distinct calls when predators appear. These calls differ for eagles, jackals, and snakes, allowing the group to react immediately with the appropriate escape behavior. This constant exchange forms a rhythm of cooperation, a living pulse of mutual protection. In their sandy world of sun and shadows, safety comes not from strength, but from shared responsibility, passed from one meerkat to the next like a gentle baton. Prairie dogs take communication into the realm of language complexity. Their alarm calls are not simple warnings. They contain elements that describe predator species, size, and even the color of a shirt worn by a passing human. These calls string together information in sequences that behave like grammar, with structure and variation that adjust depending on the urgency and type of threat. In field studies, prairie dogs reacted differently to recordings of their own calls, showing they recognize specific meanings embedded within the squeaks. Their interactions demonstrate that even small mammals can build rich social communication systems, distilling danger into coded messages that ripple across the grasslands with nuance that rivals human speech in miniature. Humpback whales bring communication to an oceanic scale. Their songs, haunting and melodic, travel across vast stretches of water, sometimes spanning entire ocean basins. These songs are not static. They evolve over time, with new phrases introduced and older ones fading. Groups of whales adopt changes collectively, almost like cultural trends spreading through populations. Each breeding season, males sing with subtle variations, layering innovation onto tradition. Over years, the songs drift, shift, repeat, and transform in ways that resemble musical evolution. These sonic patterns help whales locate one another attract mates, and maintain social bonds across enormous distances. The ocean becomes a resonant chamber filled with voices echoing through darkness, each note a piece of a story carried on currents older than any single whale. Ravens show communication of a different sort, one rooted in emotion, strategy, and social awareness. Known for their intelligence, they form lifelong partnerships and maintain complex networks of allies. Ravens tease each other, play elaborate games, and share information about food sources. They remember individuals who helped them and those who betrayed them. If a raven discovers a new food cache but suspects it is being watched, it will perform false caching, pretending to hide the food in one spot while actually concealing it somewhere else. Their social lives resemble small political systems where alliances matter, memories shape relationships, and each interaction carries layers of meaning. Their calls, body language, and behaviors form a sophisticated communication web, reflecting a mind that navigates social landscapes as skillfully as it navigates the air. Honey guides add yet another unexpected twist to communication by forming a cooperative bond across species. These birds lead humans to wild beehives by giving distinctive chattering calls and flying ahead in short bursts. Indigenous communities across parts of Africa understand these signals, following the birds through forests and savannas. When the humans break open the hive and take the honey guide moves in to feed on the leftover wax and larvae. This partnership has existed for thousands of years, shaped through mutual benefit. The birds even respond more eagerly to certain human whistles, cultural cues passed down through generations. It is one of the rare examples where an animal and humans communicate so clearly that both sides change their behavior to sustain the relationship. Taken together, these stories reveal that communication in the animal world is not just sound or movement. It is social glue, emotional expression, coordination, and cooperation. Whether rumbling through the ground, dancing with vigilance, encoding danger in chirps, singing across oceans, planning with allies, or guiding another species to shared reward, animals show that intelligence thrives not only within individual minds but between them. Communication reveals how animals share information with stunning nuance, but emotional and psychological strangeness opens the door to something even deeper: the quiet interior lives of other species. Here, behavior hints at grief, joy, memory, self-awareness, personality, and even diplomacy. Moving into this realm feels like stepping across the boundary humans often imagine between themselves and the rest of life, only to discover it is far more permeable than expected. Minds everywhere are feeling, reacting, choosing, and interpreting their worlds in ways that resonate with something familiar, yet remain shaped by bodies very different from our own. Dolphins demonstrate this most poignantly through their responses to death. When a calf dies, its mother may support the limp body at the surface for hours, even days, refusing to let it sink. Other dolphins sometimes join her, swimming slowly beside the pair, nudging the calf as though trying to wake it. No instinctive benefit comes from such behavior. It neither protects the group nor offers survival advantage. Instead, it looks like mourning, a refusal to let go, a gesture filled with longing. Researchers have observed dolphins making soft whistles during these moments, lingering around the body even when the current tugs it away. It is impossible to know exactly what grief feels like for them, but the persistence of this vigil, repeated across species and oceans, suggests that emotional bonds extend far beyond utility. In the open water, where life is fast and fluid, grief becomes an anchor, a stillness that holds meaning. Magpies, by contrast, reveal emotional and cognitive depth through self-recognition. Very few non-mammals have passed the mirror test, but magpies inspect their bodies with an awareness that suggests a sense of self. When researchers marked a magpie with a spot of paint, the bird looked in a mirror, then reached up with its beak and claws to remove the mark, behavior that requires understanding that the reflection corresponds to its own body. This level of introspection is rare, and yet here it appears in a creature wrapped in feathers, guided by a brain so different in structure from our own birds, lack the layered cortex mammals rely on, yet magpies achieve self-awareness through alternate neural pathways, proving that consciousness is not the domain of one brain shape or one lineage. Their curiosity, preening, posturing and problem-solving show a mind aware of itself moving through the world. Rats add another layer of emotional richness. They laugh. When tickled by human hands, they emit bursts of ultrasonic chirps, audible only through specialized microphones. These chirps appear not only during play but during anticipation of play, indicating excitement and pleasure. Young rats chase one another, wrestle, tumble and return for more tickling, choosing playmates who chirp most often. Joy, it seems, radiates through their tiny bodies in measurable, repeatable patterns. Play is not merely instinct, it is a shared experience shaped by affection, comfort and familiarity. In laboratory settings, rats even choose playful interaction over food under certain conditions, revealing emotional priorities that parallel the kinds of social preferences seen in far larger mammals. Their laughter, silent to human ears, fills the air with a language of happiness. Octopuses, meanwhile, express individuality so vividly that they feel like characters. Each one behaves differently, displaying preferences and quirks that remain consistent over time. Some are shy and retreat into their dens, cautiously testing objects with a single arm before committing to interaction. Others are bold, exploring every corner of their tank, manipulating tools, and even splashing water at researchers. Some take particular interest in specific shapes or textures, while others show curiosity about lights or patterns. Since 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are located within its arms, each limb operates with partial autonomy, giving rise to a distributed personality where impulses emerge from many centers at once. These animals can solve puzzles, escape enclosures, and learn through observation, all while expressing behaviors that feel distinctly personal. Their minds, spread across 8 flexible limbs, embody a form of intelligence both alien and strangely relatable. Elephants return to this emotional landscape with a behavior that has long captivated observers, their interaction with the bones of their dead. When an elephant encounters the skull or tusks of a fallen relative, it often stops, touches the bones gently with trunk and feet, and lingers in silence. Individuals who knew the deceased spend longer examining the bones, suggesting recognition even years later. Elephants may lift bones, pass them to one another, or stand quietly in a circle around them. Whether this is memory, reverence, or a form of ritual remains uncertain, but the behavior hints at a depth of emotional continuity, a kind of remembrance embedded within the herd's shared history. In these moments, the savannah becomes a place of memory, where the past is acknowledged through touch and stillness. Bonobos conclude this exploration with a perspective on conflict. While many animals resolve tension through aggression, bonobos choose connection. When disputes arise, individuals often reach for gentle touch, shared grooming, or intimate contact to diffuse tension. This approach extends beyond immediate conflict. Bonobos share food readily, adopt infants from other groups, and form strong social bonds that reduce competition. Their society shows that peace is not simply the absence of violence, but the active presence of cooperation. Where their close relatives, chimpanzees, often settle disputes with force, bonobos build alliances through empathy and physical reassurance. Evolution has shaped their behavior toward harmony, illustrating that survival does not always require dominance. Sometimes it thrives on kindness. Together, these stories reveal a world rich with feeling, awareness, individuality, and social understanding. Grief flows through oceans, joy chirps in ultrasound, mirrors reflect unexpected minds, and gestures of peace ripple across forests. In every corner of the animal kingdom, emotional lives unfold in ways that challenge the assumption that humans stand alone in complexity. Life everywhere feels, remembers, chooses, and mourns, each species adding its own voice to the quiet, profound chorus of minds beyond our own. Emotional life reveals how deeply animals feel, but cooperation shows how far those feelings extend beyond the self. Here, survival becomes a shared project, shaped by alliances, trust, division of labor, and networks of obligation that mirror, and sometimes surpass, the social structures humans build. Moving into this new realm, the focus shifts from inner worlds to collective ones, where unity becomes strength and intricate systems emerge from instinct, memory, and the quiet mathematics of cooperation. Leafcutter ants are among the greatest farmers on Earth, though none would look like one at first glance. In the humid air of tropical forests, columns of ants march along trails carrying leaf fragments like tiny emerald sails. These leaves are not eaten directly. Instead, they become substrate for elaborate fungus gardens cultivated deep underground. Workers chew the leaves into pulp, deposit them in specialized chambers, and tend them with meticulous care. Some ants distribute droplets of antibiotic secretions produced by bacteria living on their bodies, preventing mold and infections from taking hold. Others manage humidity by opening or closing ventilation tunnels, while smaller workers patrol to remove pests or diseased clumps. Each ant performs its role without instruction, guided by chemical signals and evolutionary refinement. The result is an agricultural empire that predates human farming by tens of millions of years, a civilization beneath the soil, fed by fungi tended with unerring dedication. Underground, another community thrives in a society so specialized that it resembles an insect colony, despite being fully mammalian. Naked mole rats live in eusocial networks ruled by a single breeding queen, whose hormonal control suppresses reproduction in all other females. Sterile workers dig labyrinthine tunnels through hard earth, using powerful incisors, moving soil with their heads and bodies. Soldiers defend the colony from snakes and intruders, while other individuals care for the young, maintain the nest and regulate temperature by relocating themselves to warmer or cooler corridors. Communication occurs through chirps and complex vocalizations that vary between colonies like dialects. Their physiology reinforces cooperation. They share heat, tolerate high levels of carbon dioxide, and even feel reduced pain from certain stimuli. In darkness and confinement, they have evolved a society where survival depends entirely on collective effort, a mammalian version of termite or ant hierarchies built from teamwork as much as biology. Beneath the waves, cooperation takes on an unexpectedly peaceful form. cleaner wrasses run tiny clinics on coral reefs where fish of many species visit to have parasites removed. These clients hover patiently in orderly queues, signaling their request by changing posture or coloration. The wrasse approaches with delicate precision, plucking parasites, dead skin, and mucus from fins, gills, and scales. It must maintain trust. If it bites too hard or cheats by nibbling beneficial mucus instead of parasites, the client may chase it or abandon the station entirely. Some cleaner wrasses even perform gentle tactile stroking to calm nervous visitors, soothing them into cooperation. These underwater service centres create a miniature economy of health and trust, in which predator and prey temporarily set aside natural instincts to engage in peaceful exchange. Even the fiercest reef hunters pause aggression to receive this service, illustrating how cooperation can suspend conflict when the benefits are clear. On African plains, wild dogs coordinate with remarkable unity, but their method of consensus is unlike anything else in the animal world. Before a hunt, the pack gathers in a tight circle, greeting one another with tail wags, nuzzles, and excited whines. In this moment of social cohesion, individuals begin sneezing, sharp, rhythmic expulsions that act as votes. If enough dogs sneeze within a short period, the pack moves out to hunt. If not, the group remains at rest. Dominant individuals require fewer sneezes to reach a quorum, while subordinate members need more, creating a flexible system where influence is weighted but not absolute. This sneeze-based democracy determines when the group spends precious energy chasing antelope or gazelle, ensuring decisions reflect both enthusiasm and collective readiness. The pack functions as a unified force, pursuing prey with strategic coordination impossible without this shared decision-making ritual. In forests and savannas, baboons demonstrate that social status is not simply a matter of strength. Their hierarchies are woven from grooming relationships, networks of cooperation, alliance, and trust. Individuals groom those they want to befriend or keep as allies, forming coalitions that influence everything from access to food to conflict resolution. Older females, often experienced and well-connected, wield significant authority, not through aggression, but through the number of loyal partners they have accumulated. Male baboons navigating this system must balance displays of strength with attention to social bonds, as isolated individuals quickly lose status. These grooming exchanges remove parasites and debris, yet their social meaning runs far deeper, serving as a kind of currency that shapes the entire structure of the troop. Through these interactions, baboons maintain harmony, negotiate rank, and build relationships that persist for years. In the dark rafters of caves, vampire bats offer one of the most striking examples of cooperation grounded in empathy and necessity. Their nightly hunts for blood can be unpredictable, and missing a meal can be fatal. To survive, bats share. Individuals who fed well return to roosts and regurgitate blood into the mouths of roostmates who failed to find food. Remarkably, this generosity extends even to unrelated bats, provided they have a history of cooperation. Bats keep track of who has shared with them in the past and reciprocate over time, forming a network of mutual aid. This behavior builds trust and ensures the survival of the colony across difficult nights. It is a system that mirrors human social agreements: generosity now, support later. Their society thrives not on individual success, but on collective reliability. Across ecosystems and continents, cooperation emerges as a powerful thread binding animals together. Whether farming underground, voting with sneezes, negotiating alliances through grooming, or sharing life-saving meals in the dark. These species show that survival is rarely a solitary pursuit. Instead, it thrives in the spaces between individuals, in trust, coordination, and shared purpose, revealing that the roots of society run far deeper in the wild world than we often imagine. Cooperation shows how animals build societies, but sound reveals how they express themselves across forests, oceans, and icy shores. Moving into this new realm feels like slipping into an acoustic world layered with signals, echoes, mimicry, and music. A world where communication isn't just functional, but often artistic. Some species speak in languages shaped by evolution. Others borrow the noises of their surroundings, and some craft songs so resonant they vibrate through entire underwater landscapes. Here, survival and expression intertwine through sound. Lyrebirds demonstrate this with a mastery of mimicry so uncanny that it seems supernatural. Living in the dense forests of Australia, these birds evolved their remarkable vocal talents originally for courtship displays. A male clears a stage on the forest floor, fans out his ornate tail feathers, and performs an elaborate dance while singing a medley of sounds intended to impress potential mates. Over time, these natural songs incorporated elements of the surrounding environment: other birds, creaking trees, rushing water. But as humans entered their habitats with machines, cameras, and tools, lyrebirds absorbed those sounds too. Their mimicry now includes chainsaws echoing through forests, camera shutters clicking in rapid succession, car alarms, and even human speech-like sounds. They reproduce these noises with astonishing precision, replicating the rhythm, tone, and texture so accurately that human listeners sometimes struggle to distinguish bird from machine. This skill is not simple parroting. Lyrebirds layer these sounds into complex compositions, arranging them with intentional structure, tempo, and repetition. They choose which sounds to include based on what they hear around them, shaping their personal library through experience. In doing so, they transform human-made disturbances into components of their performance. Their songs, once pure expressions of evolution, have become acoustic mirrors reflecting the presence of civilization. When a lyrebird sings in a forest at dawn, it may offer not only the voices of its wild neighbours, but an entire soundscape of humanity, reinterpreted through feathered lungs and precision vocal control. These imitations reveal not only the bird's intelligence, but also the profound adaptability of nature, turning noise into art. Walruses take sound in an entirely different direction, into the echoing chambers of icy seas. Beneath the surface of Arctic waters, male walruses produce resonant bell-like tones created by vibrating air sacs in their throats. These sounds can carry long distances underwater, ringing with a metallic clarity that seems almost unearthly. To listeners, the songs resemble bells chiming in a submerged cathedral, each note expanding and reverberating through the cold depths. The males use these sounds during breeding season to attract females and establish dominance, performing sonic displays that blend rhythm and resonance into an underwater symphony. The mechanics behind these songs are as unusual as the sounds themselves. Walruses possess inflatable throat pouches that act like resonating chambers. When filled with air, these sacs amplify vibrations produced by the walrus's vocal cords, allowing the animal to sing both above and below the surface. Underwater, the sounds become rich and far-reaching, shaping the acoustic landscape of Arctic breeding grounds. The calls vary in pitch and pattern, with each male developing a signature rhythm. The effect is mesmerizing. metallic pulses that ripple through cold, dark water, creating auditory beacons in a world where visibility is often limited. These songs also serve a social function beyond courtship. Walruses gather in dense groups on ice floes and beaches, and their vocalizations help maintain contact and coordinate movements. Sound becomes a bridge through murky depths and harsh climates, a tool that binds the herd together in environments where silence could be dangerous. Together, lyrebirds and walruses demonstrate that sound in the animal kingdom is more than communication. It is craft. One species gathers voices from its world and transforms them into elaborate performances, while another shapes the pressure of water into haunting music that echoes through frozen seas. Both reveal that language and expression reach far beyond words, taking form in mimicry, resonance, rhythm, and the timeless impulse to send one's voice out into the world. Sound shows how animals fill their worlds with echoes and music, but movement reveals how they navigate those worlds with physics-defying grace. Entering this new realm feels like stepping into a living atlas of motion, gliding above waves, sprinting across water, hovering in stillness and bending gravity with muscle and bone. Here, bodies become vehicles of innovation, each one shaped by millions of years of refinement into machines of extraordinary efficiency. Flying fish begin this exploration by transforming ocean into open air. When predators surge upward from below, these fish accelerate with powerful tail beats, breaking the surface at high speed. Their elongated pectoral fins unfurl like wings, catching the air as their bodies lift into a glide that can span more than 100 meters. In the instant they leave the water, they become aerial travelers, turning the sea's surface into a runway. The curvature of their fins, the angle of their bodies, and the momentum carried from their underwater sprint work together to keep them aloft. Some species even dip the tips of their tails back into the water mid-glide, beating rapidly to regain speed and extend their flight. In a world filled with predators, flight buys precious seconds. To witness a school doing this in succession is to see the ocean shimmer with silver wings, the boundary between sea and sky erased by necessity and elegance. On the water's surface, basilisks perform an entirely different miracle. Nicknamed Jesus lizards, they sprint upright across ponds and rivers using rapid, slapping motions of their hind feet. Each step traps a pocket of air beneath the foot, creating temporary lift that keeps the lizard from sinking. To maintain this effect, the basilisk must move extraordinarily fast, cycling its legs several times per second, its toes spread wide on impact, maximizing surface area, then fold as the foot lifts to reduce drag. The result is a brief but astonishing run across liquid, where physics bends just enough to allow escape from predators waiting in the reeds. Eventually gravity wins and the lizard dips beneath the surface, but by then it has dashed to safety. Its passage leaves only a scatter of droplets and a widening ripple behind. Hummingbirds defy physics in the air much as basilisks do on water, but their mastery lies in hovering. Beating their wings up to 80 times per second, they generate lift on both the upstroke and the downstroke. Unlike any other bird, their wings rotate in tight figure-8 patterns, producing constant support. This allows them to remain suspended in front of flowers, adjusting their position with fine-tuned precision while sipping nectar. Their muscles, proportionally among the strongest of any vertebrate, power these rapid beats, and their metabolism burns energy at astonishing rates to sustain the effort. Despite this intensity, their motion appears effortless. They dart, hover, reverse, and pivot with a fluidity that feels closer to flight through thought than through muscle. On land, the giraffe moves with a different challenge. Gravity's demand that it circulate blood across tremendous vertical distance. Its heart is a muscular powerhouse, thick-walled and strong enough to pump blood 2 meters upward to reach the brain. The arteries leading to the head are reinforced like biological pressure hoses preventing rupture. When the giraffe lowers its neck to drink, valves in the jugular veins close to keep blood from rushing downward too quickly, and elastic vessels near the skull regulate pressure changes. Without these adaptations, the simple act of bending down would cause blackout. Instead, the giraffe transitions smoothly from towering height to grounded stillness, its body quietly negotiating the physics of being one of the tallest animals to ever walk the earth. Kangaroos embody efficiency by turning motion into power savings. Their tendons act as biological springs, storing elasticity during each landing and releasing it during each leap. As they hop faster, the stored energy increases, allowing them to use less oxygen at higher speeds, the opposite of what most animals experience. Their powerful hind legs and tail form a tripod of balance and propulsion, creating a gait that is both economical and swift. This spring-loaded system allows kangaroos to travel long distances across open plains without exhausting themselves, making the landscape feel smaller as they bound from ridge to ridge with rhythmic ease. Snakes, lacking limbs entirely, move with a mathematical grace that reveals the hidden potential of muscle alone. Their bodies generate waves of contraction that travel down the spine, pushing against the ground or water to produce forward motion. Depending on the terrain, they shift between different styles: serpentine curves on flat surfaces, concertina expansions in tight spaces, sidewinding on hot sand, and undulating ripples through water. Each method redistributes pressure and friction, turning a seemingly simple body plan into a versatile engine of movement. Their muscles work in perfect coordination, creating patterns so fluid that they appear to draw shapes across the earth, geometry expressed through motion. Together, these creatures reveal that movement in the natural world is not merely a means of getting from one place to another. It is innovation, adaptation, and artistry. Whether gliding above waves, sprinting across water, hovering like a living jewel, pumping blood against gravity, bouncing with stored energy, or writing motion across sand, each species transforms physics into poetry, shaping their environment through elegant mechanics refined over countless generations. Movement reveals how animals dance with physics, but survival in extremes shows how they endure the parts of the world where physics becomes harsh, unforgiving, and absolute. These are environments where heat bakes the ground into stone, cold freezes breath into crystals, water vanishes for years, storms tear across open ice, and sunlight becomes a rare visitor. Yet life persists, not by resisting these extremes, but by mastering them. In this new realm, bodies become fortresses, senses sharpen into tools, and patience turns into strategy. Camels stand at the threshold of this harshness, with a mastery over desert life that borders on the miraculous. Contrary to myth, they do not store water in their humps but fat, dense, energy-rich fuel that can sustain them for weeks during long journeys when food is scarce. By keeping this fat in a single concentrated mass instead of spreading it throughout the body, camels reduce insulation across most of their torso, allowing heat to dissipate more effectively in scorching climates. Their bodies can lose an astonishing amount of water without fatal consequences, and their oval-shaped red blood cells continue flowing smoothly, even when dehydration thickens the blood. These uniquely shaped cells expand without bursting when water becomes available again, letting camels rehydrate rapidly after drinking immense quantities in a single sitting. Every part of their physiology, from their leathery lips that handle thorny plants to their ability to fluctuate body temperature across the day, is a careful negotiation with the desert's demands, making them living vessels of resilience. Arctic foxes represent the opposite extreme, creatures sculpted not by heat, but by relentless cold. Wrapped in the warmest natural fur of any mammal, they thrive in environments where winter temperatures plunge far below freezing. Their hearing is so acute that they can detect the faint rustle of rodents tunneling beneath layers of compacted snow. When they pinpoint the sound, they perform a high, arcing leap and dive head first through the snow crust. Researchers have observed an uncanny pattern. These foxes catch prey more effectively when they pounce facing north. This suggests that they may use Earth's magnetic field as a guide, aligning themselves in ways that subtly enhance depth perception or directional accuracy. In a world where prey hides beneath frozen layers and vision offers little help, magnetoreception becomes an invisible compass, directing each leap with silent precision. Desert frogs offer yet another strategy: survival through stillness. In places where rainfall may not come for years, these frogs burrow underground and enter a state called estivation, wrapped in a cocoon of hardened mucus that drastically reduces water loss. They slow their metabolism to near standstill. The soil above them bakes under relentless sun, but the frog waits, alive in a suspended pause that can last season after season. When the rains finally arrive, they soften the earth, dissolve the cocoon, and wake the frogs from their long dormancy. Within hours, the landscape fills with calls and movement as the frogs feed, mate, and complete their life cycles before the desert dries again. Their entire existence unfolds in brief bursts of activity punctuated by years of stillness, a rhythm set not by clocks but by clouds. In the frozen wilderness of Antarctica, penguins face challenges just as extreme. The cold is so fierce that standing still alone can be fatal. To survive blizzards where winds can exceed 100 kilometers per hour, penguins huddle. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, form a tight circle, pressing their bodies together to share warmth. Those at the perimeter face the brunt of the storm, but they do not remain there for long. The huddle rotates in slow, continuous waves, allowing every penguin to spend time in the protective center. This collective motion acts like a living thermal engine, distributing heat and responsibility equally. No one directs the movement. Instinct and cooperation guide it. From the outside, the huddle looks like a shifting mass of feathers and ice. From within, it feels like survival shared by all. High above these icy storms, the common swift inhabits a different kind of extreme: endless motion. These birds spend nearly an entire year airborne, rarely touching the ground. They feed on insect carried by wind currents, drink from raindrops mid-flight, and even sleep in microbursts while gliding. Their wings lock into aerodynamic shapes that minimize energy use, allowing them to drift on rising air as their minds dip in and out of brief rest. To live this way, their bodies have adapted to a life without stillness. Hollow bones optimized for flight, powerful breast muscles for lift, and a metabolism tuned to near-constant motion. For a swift, the sky is not a place to pass through. It is home, habitat, and resting place all at once. Crocodiles bring this exploration to the water's edge, where patience becomes an extreme of its own. When submerged, they can slow their heartbeat to as few as 2 beats per minute. This allows them to remain underwater for extended periods, conserving oxygen while waiting motionless for prey to approach. Their metabolism drops, their muscles rest, and their bodies become indistinguishable from drifting logs. This capacity to nearly suspend physiological activity is a cornerstone of their ambush strategy. When the moment comes, they erupt from stillness with explosive force, jaws snapping shut with immense pressure. To a crocodile, survival is not endurance or speed alone. It is timing, stillness, and the ability to merge with the environment until action becomes unavoidable. Across deserts, ice fields, storm fronts, skies, and swamps, these creatures show that survival is not simply resistance to hardship. It is adaptation, patience, and mastery over environments that appear utterly inhospitable. Life in all its forms finds not just ways to persist in extremes, but ways to belong there, reshaping itself to fit the edges of the earth. Survival in extremes shows how animals bend the rules of the environment, but evolutionary anomalies reveal how they sometimes bend the rules of biology itself. These are species shaped by pressures so unusual, or opportunities so specific, that their bodies evolve into forms that look almost improbable. Moving into this realm feels like opening a collection of evolutionary experiments, each one a reminder that nature's creativity has no fixed template. Sometimes the result is gigantic, sometimes delicate, sometimes comical, sometimes haunting, but always purposeful. The kiwi embodies this beautifully through a reproductive strategy that seems almost impossible. This small, flightless bird lays an egg that can weigh up to 1/4 of its entire body mass, the largest egg-to-body ratio among birds. To imagine this, picture a human giving birth to something the size of a full-grown toddler. The kiwi's internal organs shift and compress in the weeks leading up to laying, making room for the massive egg as it grows, but the effort pays off. The egg is packed with yolk, providing the developing chick with enough nourishment to hatch nearly fully feathered and ready for life outside the nest. Since kiwis typically lay only 1 or 2 eggs at a time, the parents invest heavily in each offspring. Their nocturnal lifestyle, keen sense of smell, and ground-based habits mean that survival depends not on quantity but on quality. A single, robust chick rather than a large brood. It is parental devotion sculpted into biology, turning reproduction into a high-stakes commitment where each egg carries enormous value. From giant eggs, the focus shifts to miniature tools with the ai, a lemur from Madagascar whose appearance seems assembled from spare parts. Its middle finger is elongated, thin and jointed like a delicate fishing rod. This finger taps rapidly on wood, producing vibrations that reveal hollow chambers beneath the bark where insect larvae hide. Once the eye detects a cavity, it gnaws a hole with rodent-like incisors and inserts the slender finger to hook out the prey. This foraging method, known as percussive feeding, is unique among primates and more reminiscent of a woodpecker's lifestyle than a mammal's. The ai's entire hand has evolved for this purpose. Its fingers vary in thickness and length, with joints that permit unusual flexibility. Evolution, in this case, did not settle for general-purpose anatomy. It built a specialized set of tools into the animal's own body, creating a creature whose livelihood relies on a single miraculous digit that acts as tap, probe, and hook. Evolutionary strangeness grows even more pronounced in the male giraffe weevil of New Zealand. These insects sport absurdly elongated necks. Not for feeding, as the name might suggest, but for combat, males use their stretched necks as levers during fights over mates, pushing, shoving, and wrestling rivals on tree trunks. The longer the neck, the better the leverage, and the greater the chance of winning access to a female. This structure is so exaggerated that it transforms the insect's silhouette into something almost comical. A tiny body capped with a neck that can be several times longer than its torso. Yet for all its odd appearance, the neck is a marvel of evolutionary engineering, strong enough to withstand the mechanical stresses of grappling matches while remaining light enough for flight. In this species, architecture becomes competition, a structural adaptation shaped not by environmental need but by social rivalry. The Saiga antelope adds a final note to this collection, with a feature that looks whimsical but serves profound physiological functions. Its bulbous, flexible nose, almost trunk-like, helps it survive in harsh steppe environments. During summer, when dust storms sweep across the plains, the nose acts as a filtration system, trapping particles before they reach the lungs. In winter, temperatures plummet, and the same nose warms incoming air through a maze of mucous membranes and blood-rich tissues. This adaptation protects the saiga's delicate respiratory system from freezing air and lung damage. The structure also amplifies mating calls during breeding season, adding another layer of purpose. What appears at first glance like a comical, oversized nose is in fact an evolutionary multi-tool, a blend of filtration, heating, and communication designed for life in extreme climates. Together, these evolutionary anomalies show that nature rarely takes the straight path. Instead, it experiments, iterates, and refines forms that might seem improbable, but solve the unique challenges of each species' world, from enormous eggs to delicate tapping fingers, elongated necks to air-warming noses. Every adaptation tells a story of pressures, possibilities, and the remarkable flexibility of life. Evolutionary anomalies often feel like nature reaching the edges of its imagination, but this final collection reveals something even more striking. Sometimes what appears strange, mythical, or comedic is simply life-shaped perfectly for conditions humans rarely see. These animals challenge assumptions about beauty, biology, and possibility, reminding us that evolution's oddities are often its most elegant solutions. The blobfish is the perfect example of a creature misunderstood by context. Photographs of it taken on land show a collapsed, drooping mass of gelatinous tissue, an image that made it an internet symbol of ugliness. But this form is only visible after rapid decompression, when the deep sea pressure that normally supports its body disappears. In its natural habitat, thousands of meters below the surface, the blobfish is perfectly buoyant and streamlined. With no swim bladder and a body made of soft, low-density tissue, it floats effortlessly above the seafloor, expending almost no energy. This is crucial in a world where food is scarce and movement is costly. Its appearance on land is not its true form, but the result of humans dragging a deep-sea specialist into an environment it was never designed to endure. Under crushing pressure, the blobfish's gelatinous shape becomes the ideal adaptation, proof that ugly is often just a mismatch of worlds. The echidna embodies another kind of evolutionary detour. As one of the few egg-laying mammals, it already occupies a unique place on the tree of life, but its reproductive anatomy adds another layer of peculiarity. The male echidna has a four-headed reproductive organ, each tip capable of functioning independently. During mating, only two heads activate at a time, with the echidna switching pairs between sessions. This unusual system may have evolved due to the complex reproductive anatomy of females, or as a competitive adaptation in species where multiple males mate with the same female. Whatever the path, the result is a reminder that evolution does not shy away from unconventional designs. It only cares about what works. The echidna is a living patchwork of ancestral traits and modern innovations, showing that nature's rulebook has more footnotes than rules. The narwhal adds a mythic flourish to the world of evolutionary outliers. Its iconic tusk, long, spiraled, and almost impossibly straight, is actually an elongated tooth. This tooth grows through the upper lip and can reach lengths over 3 meters, twisting in a perfect helix. Packed with millions of nerve endings, the tusk acts as a sensory organ capable of detecting changes in temperature, pressure, and salinity. Researchers believe narwhals use it to sense subtle gradients in the icy Arctic waters, locating fish, navigating shifting currents, or gauging environmental conditions. Occasionally, males cross tusks in a behavior that resembles jousting, though it is likely more social than combative. What once fueled legends of unicorns is, in reality, a sophisticated biological instrument, a fusion of sensory precision and evolutionary flourish, masquerading as fantasy. Deception takes center stage in the mimic poisoned frog of the Amazon, a tiny amphibian armed not with toxins but with impersonation. Unlike its highly toxic relatives, this species lacks the dangerous alkaloids that make poison dart frogs deadly. Instead, it imitates the colours and patterns of much more toxic species living nearby. Predators, unable to distinguish between mimic and model, give the harmless frog a wide berth. This type of protective mimicry is well known in insects, but in amphibians it was so subtle that scientists overlooked the truth for decades. Only careful chemical analysis revealed the fraud. The mimic poison frog's survival depends entirely on the believability of its costume, an evolutionary gamble that pays off as long as predators remember the unpleasant lessons taught by its more toxic lookalikes. In the dense, competitive forests of the Amazon, colour becomes currency and deception becomes armour. The tardigrade closes this journey through strangeness, with a lesson in perseverance that borders on the cosmic. Barely 0.5 millimeter long, these microscopic creatures are among the toughest organisms on the planet. When conditions become hostile, extreme heat, freezing cold, radiation, dehydration, or even the vacuum of space, tardigrades enter a state called cryptobiosis. Their bodies dry out, their metabolism slows to near zero, and they fold into a tiny dormant form called a ton. In this state they can survive for decades, waiting patiently for moisture to return. When it does, they rehydrate, unfold, and resume life as if nothing happened. They do not live forever, and they are not invincible, but their ability to pause life when the universe becomes too harsh makes them almost otherworldly. Tardigrades are nature's reminder that endurance can be small, quiet, and astonishingly persistent. Together, these final creatures illustrate the endless variability of life. A fish that collapses on land but floats flawlessly in the deep, a mammal that lays eggs and carries anatomical surprises, a whale with a unicorn's horn that functions as a sensory wand, a frog that survives by looking dangerous rather than being dangerous, and a microscopic wanderer that waits out the universe's worst conditions as calmly as drifting dust. Evolution's oddities reveal not chaos, but creativity, the infinite range of solutions life invents to meet the world as it is. Across this long drift through the animal kingdom, each creature has revealed something quietly astonishing about the world we share. From the deep-sea beings whose bodies collapse without the weight of an ocean, to the amphibians that wake after years entombed in desert soil, to the birds that sculpt sound into mimicry, and the mammals that forge alliances through empathy. Every fact has been a small window into the sheer inventiveness of life. Some animals endure crushing pressure, others wield light or electricity, some regrow what is lost, and some deceive danger with colours stolen from their neighbours. A few even rewrite the rules of biology altogether, laying eggs when mammals shouldn't, growing tusks from teeth, or folding themselves into dust when the universe becomes too harsh. Taken together, these moments form a mosaic of strategies, shapes, minds, and mysteries. They remind us that nature is not a tidy arrangement of predictable forms, but a restless engine of possibility, evolution experiments without ego, sculpting bodies and behaviours that stretch imagination, a shrimp that snaps a claw hotter than the sun, a jellyfish that reverses its own life, a bird that copies the rising pulse of human civilization, a fox that leaps by magnetic alignment, or a tardigrade that simply waits out catastrophe. The world becomes larger when you see it through these details, stranger, deeper, and far more intertwined with ingenuity than at first appears. If you've enjoyed drifting through these 101 pieces of quiet strangeness, it would mean a great deal if you could gently tap the like button. It genuinely helps the algorithm understand that this kind of calm, thoughtful content is worth sharing with others who might need something peaceful to fall asleep to. And if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow this little corner of curiosity, one sleepy science journey at a time, for everyone who is already subscribed. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to turn on notifications as well, just so you don't miss the next time we wander into another pocket of the natural world and see what unusual secrets it's been keeping. If you have ideas for future videos, a topic you've always wondered about, or something strange you once heard whispered about in a documentary, or even just a word you find intriguing, please let me know in the comments. Some of the best journeys begin with a simple suggestion. As always, thank you for listening, and have a peaceful rest wherever you are tonight.